In this movie, I want to consider the issue of movement and motion of objects within a 3D scene. And to demonstrate this, I have created a specific scene for this purpose. You can see in this Unity project here, under the folder Assets, Scenes and Mover, that I've created a moving object.unity scene inside the project panel. This is being based from the base scene that is included in the course companion files. So it includes this pretty simple setup here. And what I want to demonstrate here is how we can move an object from script within a scene. Now, you may already know how to do this. It is in fact pretty simple to do, but in achieving this, we will introduce some core mathematical concepts, in particular the concept of the vector. So what I'm going to do to demonstrate this is to create a completely new object that we will move over time. To do that, I'm going to choose Game Object, 3D Object, and then select the option Capsule to add a capsule object to the scene. Let me just move this up inside the scene here. So we have this capsule object that we can see in front of us. Now this capsule object has 3 local axes. In particular, you can see that we have this blue arrow pointing out of the front. This represents the direction in which the object is looking. So the blue axis is the forward vector. And then we have another axis, a perpendicular axis, pointing straight upwards here. Remember, perpendicular means that it's oriented 90 degrees away from the original axis. So we have the up vector here, which is this green axis, telling the object which way is up. And then we have another perpendicular vector here, the right axis, which is pointing to the right. Of course, pointing to the left is simply the inverse, the reverse of this axis. So these are the 3 main axes of this object. And you can see from the transform component over here that we have key properties for its transformation data. We have the position field, the position of the object within 3D space, its orientation described under rotation, and finally its scale field here. So these 3 key properties. Now, of course, if I wanted to move this object in the direction in which it's looking, at least right now, I could come over to the Z field, click and drag to just move the object in that forward direction there. I could do that to move the object forwards. But a key problem happens. If I select the object and switch to the rotate tool with the E key on the keyboard, and I rotate this object, and I move back to the translate tool with the W key, you can see that the forward axis of this object is now pointing in a different direction. These represent the local axes of this object because they define the orientation of the object within the world. If I move up here to the toolbar and I switch this from local to world, I can now see the world axes. This is the forward, up, and right directions of the world, and these axes are constant and unchanging. They never change. You don't transform the world. These are constantly aligned axes. But notice they no longer correspond to this object's axes. If I switch back to the local view, you can see that the forward vector for this object is pointing over here. Now, if I wanted to continue moving this object in the direction in which it's looking, I can no longer simply come along and change the Z field, because now this object is moving in world space. It's moving along the Z axis within the world and not its own local Z axis. For this reason, I'm going to take a different approach. You'll need to use a different approach from simply just changing these values in here to move this object on its local axis. If you want to move this object in the direction in which it's looking, we'll need to rely on the mathematical concept of the vector. Vectors will allow us to achieve this kind of more powerful motion, allowing us to move an object in any direction at all, including the direction in which it's looking. Vectors and the arithmetic, the combination of vectors together, is going to make that process very, very easy, and we'll see how to do that next.